Nkechi and Emeka were a perfect couple, the kind that made everyone believe in love at first sight. Their love story began in the university. Nkechi, a passionate writer, would often be found scribbling poetry in her notebook, while Emeka, a dedicated civil engineering student, would always be busy with his project. They shared their dreams, laughter, and a vision of a future together. Friends often marveled at their connection, convinced that they were destined to be together forever. Few years after graduation, their love blossomed into a beautiful marriage, celebrated in grand style. Friends and family gathered to witness their vows, believing they were witnessing the beginning of a fairy tale. Emeka promised to always support Nkechi's writing, while she vowed to stand by him as he built his career in engineering. However, as the years passed, the reality of life began to set in. Emeka quickly climbed the ranks in his engineering firm, often taking on projects that required long hours and frequent travel. At first, Nkechi was proud of her husband's success, but months later, the loneliness began to seep into her heart. Emeka would leave early in the morning and return late at night, often too exhausted to engage in meaningful conversations. Nkechi found herself spending evenings alone, surrounded by the silence of their once vibrant home. As time went on, Nkechi's loneliness gradually started resulting to resentment. She poured her feelings into her writing, crafting stories that reflected her pain and longing. Her once joyful passion became a source of frustration as she struggled to find inspiration without Emeka by her side. She would often wait up for him, hoping for a moment of connection, but he would come home, too tired to notice the emptiness in her eyes. "Emeka, can we talk?" Nkechi would ask, her voice trembling with the weight of her emotions. "Not now, Nkechi. I have a deadline," he would reply, his focus on his work, unable to notice the cracks forming in their relationship. The distance between them grew, and Nkechi began to feel like a ghost in her home. Friends noticed the change in her appearance and act, and whispers of concern began to circulate. "Have you talked to Emeka about how you feel?" they would ask. But each time, she hesitated, fearing that her words would only push him further away. One evening, after another long day of waiting, Nkechi decided to confront Emeka. She had spent hours crafting her thoughts, hoping to express her feelings without sounding selfish or too demanding. When he finally walked through the door, she took a deep breath. "Emeka, I feel so alone. I miss you," she said, her voice breaking. He looked at her, surprise etched on his face. "I'm doing this for us, Nkechi. I'm working hard to provide for our future. But what about our present? I need you here, not just in spirit," she replied, tears streaming down her cheeks. Emeka sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I can't just drop everything. You know how important this project is." That night, they argued for the first time. Words were exchanged that cut deeper than either of them anticipated. Emeka accused Nkechi of being selfish, while she accused him of neglecting their marriage. The love that once bound them felt fragile, almost collapsing. Weeks later, the tension in their home became unbearable. Emeka continued to work late, and Nkechi found comfort in her writing, but it was no longer the joyful escape it was. Instead, it became a reflection of her despair. She wrote about love lost, about the emptiness that filled her heart, and about the realization that love alone could not sustain a marriage. One fateful evening, Nkechi received a call from a mutual friend, Chika, who had been a witness to their unraveling. "Nkechi, I'm worried about you. You need to talk to Emeka. This can't go on," she urged. "I don't know if it will make a difference," Nkechi replied, her voice heavy with uncertainty. "Love is not enough, Nkechi. You both need to communicate to find a way back to each other," Chika insisted. With a heavy heart, Nkechi decided to give it a try. She planned a special dinner, hoping to rekindle the love, the spark that was once ignited their love. She cooked Emeka's favorite meal, set the table with candles, and waited for him to come home. But as the clock ticked past 8, she felt the familiar pang of disappointment. When Emeka finally arrived, he was exhausted and barely acknowledged the effort she had put into the evening. "I'm too tired for this, Nkechi. Can we just eat and go to bed?" he said, his tone dismissive. That was the breaking point for Nkechi. She felt invisible, as if her efforts were futile against the weight of Emeka's ambition. "I can't do this anymore," she said, her voice steady despite the turmoil inside. "I need more than just love. I need a partner." Emeka looked confused. "What do you mean? I thought we were building a life together." "Yes, but you are not here. You're physically present but emotionally absent. I need you to be part of my life, not just a provider," she replied, her heart racing. The silence that followed was deafening. Emeka's expression shifted from confusion to frustration. "You knew I had to work hard to succeed. I thought you understood that." "I did, but I didn't realize it would mean losing you in the process," Nkechi said, tears welling in her eyes. "I feel like I'm living with a stranger." The argument escalated, with both of them airing grievances that had been bottled up for too long. Emeka accused Nkechi of being ungrateful, while she pointed out his neglect. The love that once had been their foundation now felt like a fragile thread, fraying under the weight of unspoken words and unmet needs. As the weeks passed, the distance between them only widened. Emeka continued to bury himself in work, while Nkechi sought comfort in her writing, pouring her heart into stories that mirrored her own struggles. She began to question whether love was enough to hold them together when the very essence of their relationship was crumbling. One evening, after a heated argument between them, Nkechi made a decision that would change everything. She reached out to a divorce lawyer, seeking advice on how to navigate the painful process. The thought of ending their marriage felt like a betrayal to the love they once shared. But the loneliness had become unbearable. When she finally gathered the courage to tell Emeka about her decision, he was shocked. "You can't be serious, Nkechi. We can work this out," he said, desperation in his voice. "I've tried, Emeka. I've tried to reach you, but you are not here. I need more than just love. I need a partner who is present in my life," she replied, her heart heavy with the weight of her decision. Emeka's face fell, and for the very first time, she saw the vulnerability in him. "I didn't realize how much I was neglecting you. I thought I was doing the right thing by providing for us," he said, his voice cracking. Nkechi felt a flicker of hope, but it was quickly overshadowed by the reality of their situation. "It's not just about providing, Emeka. It's about being there for each other, sharing our lives, our dreams, and our struggles. I can't keep waiting for you to come home," she said, her voice steady, despite the tears streaming down her cheeks. The conversation led to a deep discussion about their dreams, aspirations, and the sacrifices they had made. Emeka opened up about the pressure he felt to succeed, the long hours he worked to secure their future, and the fear of failure that drove him. Nkechi, in turn, shared her feelings of isolation and longing for emotional intimacy that had been missing for so long. As they spoke, the walls they had built around their hearts began to crumble. They realized that love alone was not enough to sustain their marriage. They needed to communicate, to understand each other's needs, and to find a balance between ambition and connection.
In the weeks that followed, they sought counseling together, determined to rebuild their relationship. It was a challenging process filled with uncomfortable conversations and painful realizations. They learned to express their feelings openly, to listen without judgment, and to prioritize their time together. Slowly, they began to reconnect. Emeka made a conscious effort to be present, setting boundaries at work and dedicating time to Nkechi. They started going on dates again, rediscovering the joy of each other's company. Nkechi found inspiration in her writing once more, channeling her experiences into stories that reflected their journey of healing. However, the road to recovery was not without its challenges. There were moments of doubt, times when old habits threatened to resurface. Emeka would occasionally slip back into workaholic tendencies, and Nkechi would feel the familiar pang of loneliness. But they learned to communicate these feelings, addressing issues before they could escalate. One evening, as they sat together on the couch, Nkechi looked at Emeka and smiled. "I'm proud of us. We've come a long way," she said, her heart swelling with gratitude. Emeka nodded, a soft smile on his face. "I never want to take you for granted again. I've learned that love is not just enough, it is just the beginning. It's the effort we put in that truly matters." As they embraced, Nkechi felt a renewed sense of hope. They had faced the brink of divorce, but through their struggles, they had discovered that love, while essential, was not enough on its own. It required commitment, communication, and a willingness to grow together. In the end, Nkechi and Emeka emerged stronger, their love transformed by the trials they had faced. They learned that love is a journey, one that requires constant nurturing and understanding. And while they had come close to losing each other, they had ultimately found their way back, proving that love, when paired with efforts and dedication, could indeed conquer all. Now we have come to the end of another beautiful story. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe to my channel. See you next time. Bye for now.